All right, so we're talking about supplements. What has there been any supplements that you've come across recently? That I know I put one in there that I'll chat a little bit about. But has anybody asked you about a supplement recently?
Yeah, so Berberine is getting a lot of attention lately. That's one that I've noticed.
Repeat that.
Berberine,
Berberine.
it's a chemical substance
Oh,
that's found in some plants, and some people concentrate that to supplements with various claims for the benefits.
okay. Yeah, I've totally heard about this one. So I guess that's there too. Is that supplements from a nutritional perspective? It could be purified nutrients. It could be herbal supplements. Combinations of the two or more. This one looks to be a herbal supplement, correct?
Yes, and the main benefits that are promoted relate to cardiovascular health as well as managing blood sugar is another one that is commonly brought up.
Okay, so let's say I'm a client that comes to you, or a person, I guess, whatever context is going to allow you to actually provide a thoughtful and well-rounded response. Because I know there's situations where people ask you, and you're like, I can't go into this right now. It's not, it's not ethical for me to do that. Let's pretend it's a client. They ask you, I want to take berberine. Do you think it's a good idea? Yes or no? And why yes, and if no, why no? What would you say?
Sure. So I think that when people come with questions about a particular newer supplement or something like that, that's an alternative to maybe some other options that are further along in terms of research. I think an important thing is putting it in context of, like I said, the evidence in itself, as well as what they're doing currently. So is if someone is wanting to, let's say, do a replacement, like they want to, like it's common that people at some point want to stop taking medication for a chronic condition. If they want to do like a one-to-one replacement, then you need to put it in the context of like the magnitude of effect based on the research of the supplement versus something like, let's say we're doing blood sugar, like continuing to take something like insulin or something like Ozempic. Just putting it in the context of that, because with berberine specifically, one of the ways that it's touted is like nature's Ozempic, and if you look at the evidence of each, then it appears that Ozempic is significantly more effective, and there's just longer term research on it. So, yes, I think an important thing is putting it in the context of what you would otherwise be doing, the overall evidence that there is there. And another important one is, depending on the supplement, talking about supplements in general when it comes to overall the impact on overall health versus other things.
So if it's touted as a nature's Ozempic, Andrea, have you heard about this yet? Because I've not heard much in that context. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, that I'm not. Have I heard of it? No. Am I not surprised? No. Any health condition, there's a marketing component of this can replace this, and we're naturally drawn to that because of the words such as natural, things like that, because we feel medications are maybe not natural. And I think for our clients, and Miro is right. Like, what is the reason for taking it? What is your intent of this? How are we going to know that it's doing it too? Um, because the evidence might not always suggest that it's going to do X, Y, Z. But for people who are wanting to take it to see, then as a person living with whatever and trying to solve whatever, that needs to be looked at. Okay, well, how am I going to know that it's working? Am I going to put extra testing in place, for looking at blood sugar control? Am I going to, get a pre lab workup from my doctor and then 6 months have it repeated so I know? Right, there's because the evidence for some is not there doesn't mean it might not, so you do have to basically become your own test subject basically around it. To date, though, I've not seen anything equivalent to Ozempic. And if there was that natural pill, as registered dietitians, I would be all over that, but it is sometimes hard to replicate a certain medication response in a supplement response the same. It's very difficult.
Yeah, agreed. I come across that a lot in the sports world, wherein somebody's trying to find a certain substance that will usually not try and replace a medication, because medications outside of the context of course, managing health conditions for athletes, it's like this supplement will do this, and usually it's targeting an energy system, or helping combat fatigue, or helping to I guess improve performance by making somebody faster, stronger, recover quicker, any of those things. And what I always tell people is that if you don't have a solid foundation, then the supplement's not gonna it's not gonna do anything. It might not even work properly. You might not even notice any effects. And and I think the appeal is that, well, I guess, yeah, the more natural approach, which is interesting to me in the sports context. I still see that because food is still natural, but also sounds like it's going to be something that will be very easy. I can just take this and everything will be better. I'll take this one thing as opposed to worrying about all these other behaviors. Although some people sometimes forget that taking a supplement is a behavior that you still have to worry about doing properly. Yeah, I visualize it sometimes like a pyramid, and some people have probably seen this type of a pyramid wherein you kind of have a level of priority. You have a solid base, and then as you work up to the tip of the pyramid, there's less time spent because you're going to probably get less out of whatever the thing is. And sometimes people invert the pyramid. Instead of focusing on strong foundation, they focus on supplements first, even though that'll provide you with probably the least gain in this context performance. So when you're assessing a supplement's, I guess, effectiveness, safety, you talked things about like comparing it to medications, and that's kind of a tough comparison. But if you were just to say, look at, does this supplement actually do anything? What are some things that you look for when you're looking at a supplement?
It's important to look at the research on that supplement that currently exists. Sometimes some things are going to have more longer term research, or just a greater degree of or higher amount of research studies on it. And as more research is done, we probably get a better idea of knowing if something is effective and to what degree it's effective. So looking at research on the supplement is very important. Seeing if there's any kind of like meta study that combines the results of other kinds of research, how long has it been used, and also just assessing, not just assessing if the thing works, if the supplement works at all in any capacity, but comparing to the claims that are most often made. And some sites where we may be able to find some good information on this type of thing would be like Examine. The free version has at least the basics on most things, which is good. And then even just websites like Healthline and WebMD give some good plain language summaries of some of the evidence on certain supplements. So for consumers, I think areas like that are good, and even for providers as a starting point before going into maybe the more detailed research.
Right, right. I feel like this is going to be an obvious one, but if you see a claim for a supplement, believable or not believable, or is there value or merit in supplement claims? Andrea, you were about to say something, so maybe I'll let you speak about what you're going to go to first.
Yeah, well, it's kind of in that context, right? Is the supplement world is a huge industry, and we know that with that type of industry, also don't have consistency necessarily across the board. So when I'm talking to clients around supplements, it's also, are we talking about just something you bought on Amazon, or are we talking about a product that actually we can link because it's got a health number that actually can be verified? So I think that's even just part of it too, people take supplements, they get them from everywhere, but it doesn't always mean that they're actually even a supplement that we can take back to the research to look, because the dose, the concentration, the mix of it can be so variable. And I think that's one of the things that that is not necessarily frustrating as a dietitian, because it's really difficult to go, okay, is this supplement exactly matching that claim? Because potentially it's a difference between a gel capsule versus a powder, or the different form of the plant that they're mixing. So I find as a dietitian, it's always gray that comes back. There might be a claim, but that claim might not equate to that exact supplement. It might just be a compound of that supplement.
Mm, good point. Good point. Yeah, yeah.
Another thing there isn't just like inconsistencies in how it's packed and all of that stuff, but there are going to be some supplements where people don't even recommend a specific dose. They'll just say like this thing is good for you, but when it comes to medication and stuff like that, we like the dosing is very important. You're supposed to
Totally.
take 4 milligrams every morning or something like that. Not just figure it out yourself. Here's a vial of powder of the active ingredient. Just go home and do whatever. There's dosing for something like that is very important. And we even see that with some of the supplements that are more evidence based. So going back to more of like the sports performance world, we know like on average that, for example, something like creatine, like 5 grams for 4 weeks or so should fully saturate your stores. So yeah, when there's more evidence, there are going to be more specific actions that are recommended, not just take this substance.
Yeah, this boosts this or improves this. I often find that a lot of supplement claims are very theoretical and like mechanistic, meaning that we know this particular compound plays a role in this process in the body. Therefore, if I take more of it, it's going to help with said process in the body, and that's just not how the body works. Other than in some very specific cases, like creatine being one of those cases where taking more than to a certain extent can help. But other things like micronutrients, as an example, very common. If I take a lot of it, it's going to be awesome. It's going to boost my immunity. It's going to give me more energy because those nutrients may play a role in immunity or energy metabolism. But mega dosing does not do anything at all except for making expensive urine.
And potentially harmful too. We forget that just because it's considered a natural supplement or something our body might need in the micronutrient world doesn't necessarily mean that more of it, yeah, it gives benefit, but also is safe. We do know that there's, just like medications, why that dosing is important is because we don't know how much is safe. So, anybody thinking about supplements of any kind should think about, is this safe? Is there, pregnancy, children, does it interfere with other medications as well? Just because it's deemed natural doesn't necessarily mean it's natural to take it in large amounts.
Yeah, that part about medication, can you expand on that a little bit? What about medications are important?
Well, it's important to know, like, just from, the medication world is highly regulated. So we know that there is interactions within just medications within medications. So the same theory applies. We might see interactions with medications and supplements, just like we see medications and food sometimes actually not going together, right? So that's an important thing. If you're taking supplements and you are taking other medications, that's been double checked, that you're not interfering with them. It, that's more, again, to the safety component.
Right, right, right. Do you
I
have any
can't think of any.
examples?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and no, I don't. Not off the top of my head. Oh, so calcium is one. A lot of people take calcium for bone health. We know that there's an upper limit of how much your body can take for calcium supplements. That one seems like just a normal one to take. But at the same time, that would interfere with thyroid medication. So if you didn't know that, thyroid is a regulatory process, that you might potentially have a conflict between both of those. And then that could that one would be the one top of my mind, mostly because I just gave that recommendation not that long ago. But
A supplement example rather than a prescription medicine one would be berberine again. So I think it is people advise against taking cyclosporin, which is going to be it's for like immunosuppression, even when it comes to not just medications but supplements themselves, which aren't going to come with warning labels, may interact with other medications that are more important.
Totally. I even see this is a common one that I see because I work with a lot of people that have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and if they're taking psychostimulants, so like Concerta, Vyvanse, Ritalin, Adderall, and they're consuming any form of caffeine with pre-workout supplements. Some people take caffeine pills or anything like this, which is kind of a little bit more, of course, of a consideration compared to even something like coffee or tea, although that can still be problematic because you're basically stacking a stimulant on top of a stimulant. And for some products, like some sports supplements, pre-workout powders, I mean, we can get to like 1, 2, 300 milligrams of caffeine in a dose, of course, depending on how much you take of it. You stack that on top of a psychostimulant, that's already very potent. And I mean, you're not only going to have potentially just not feel good, but then we start to get into some risks that that could be quite serious from a health perspective. So, okay, we talked a little bit about Berberine. I think it was you mentioned some websites people can go to. You gave some examples there. One thing that I usually look at is to see if a supplement has been tested properly. Do you know of any places where you can look at for verifying this type of information? Supplements been tested, why testing actually matters?
So this is going to be on the label of some supplements, but there's the NSF certification that will tell people that a product has been tested. They make sure that it has what it claims. They make sure that the dose is what it claims. They make sure that there aren't other things in there. And there are some very concerning past stories about this kind of thing where supplements, a couple examples, old original like Jack 3D, which might be one you're familiar with, in terms of having things that were not written on the label there that were more stimulants beyond what should be in a pre-workout. And then a similar thing with this other one called Craze more recently, or like after the Jack 3D stuff, more like 2013 or so. Yeah, there are occasionally just examples of not just things being in the supplement that like a supplement not having what it claims, but also having things that shouldn't be in there, which we would call adulterants. So,
Right.
yeah, just making sure that they're safe from that perspective.
Makes sense. I know there's also NSF certified for sport, pretty common one. That's one that's often used by pro sports teams as a preference for certifications. For people that are not looking for as expensive a products, because usually that comes with a price tag. There's also Informed Choice, Informed Sport. Those ones slightly different testing protocols. Informed Choice particularly just is a more random testing protocol, whereas Informed Sport, NSF certified for sport, those ones have more strict testing protocols that are more regular, that test every batch, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's different because, well, different regulations, and it's different between Canada versus the US. I know I've heard some different stories in between different countries, but very easy. I've used it with clients a lot. In a session, actually, you just whip open the website, search for the supplement. If you don't see the supplement, probably a good chance that it hasn't been tested. And the thing about a lot of supplements is if you go searching for them online, if they are tested and tested well, tested by a reputable third-party test agency, people will want people to know that. It's a very marketable thing. So the fact that some supplements either don't have that anywhere on the product label, on the website, or don't even have it like easily accessible, they kind of bury it. There's red flags all over the place because there's oftentimes supplements that are available that actually have been tested.
And with, like you said, with the testing coming at a greater price, that is something to consider. But you also want to consider that with things that are not tested, you may not be getting the active ingredient at all, or not very much of it. So even the cost difference could balance out there when we actually know what's inside of it.
Totally. So this gets to understanding proper dosing, which is another thing that kind of gets to something we spoke earlier about. Is it actually ineffective? Is it safe? So on and so forth. And dosing matters in both of those cases here. When you're looking at dosing, why does dosing matter? It seems like a kind of an obvious question, but if I'm looking at a supplement and I'm looking, does it matter that it just has it? Do I need to look for a specific amount? What am I looking for?
Yes, so with the different supplements, we are going to want, it'll depend what the supplement is, but we are going to want to look up what an effective dose is and ensure that that's what we're getting from the supplement. We don't want to take something when it's like half of the effective dose, and we also don't want to overdo it, where we're in the end just wasting money. When it comes to effective dosing, that's just based off of research of how much how high can we go that we're still seeing benefits without any negatives. And that's similar to how we do it with medication. We want to know what an effective dose is. We want to know, even if, let's say, it is more effective at a higher dose, do the negatives then begin to outweigh the positives in terms of side effects? So that's the kind of thing that we're considering with the dosing.
Can you imagine, Andrea, can you imagine if somebody treated insulin the same way, or even diabetes medications, where it's like, I'm just going to take this without any thought of how much it is? And if people treated that the same way that sometimes people treat supplements, where it's like, oh, it's just there, good, and I'm just going to believe this claim that's on the supplement and just go on my merry way without looking further into it. Can you? I cannot imagine if somebody were to do that.
I can't imagine because there's some things that, yeah, the medications, just we just have a different mindset when we talk about them and we think about them, so that thought is scary. But then I actually bring it back to a lot of people who are on multiple medications. That in itself takes a lot of management to remember, okay, like how much am I supposed to take? When am I supposed to take that again? And is this without meals or with meals? There's a lot of thought that goes into people who are living with conditions that require that multiple medication. So I can't imagine it, but I know it happens, and that's because mistakes happen. We're human. We know that we accidentally take the insulin at the wrong time, and there's consequences to do that, and there's consequences of missing it. And it's just naturally that is a difficult behavior. People who don't take stuff now have to take things and trying to navigate it. So the same as with supplements, I find we're more relaxed about that, but we shouldn't be. We should be going like, yeah, what happens if you're taking this hoping for a result, but you're not taking it consistently, or you're not taking it to the dose that it should be, or you're, mixing it with something that it shouldn't be. Like, we have red flags about medications, we do that. We should have a lot more stricter. We need to go into that mindset with supplements as well, basically.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that part about how people can sometimes just take a supplement willy-nilly without thinking about it, that there's probably the way that some manufacturers formulate their products in such a way that, if they take this random mishmash of stuff, it's not dosed high enough that it will probably do anything. For some, that's kind of risky business, but it's like, well, I'm gonna make this supplement, and I'm gonna put all these claims on here because these substances technically do something in this area, but I'm not gonna put enough of it in there that will necessarily harm them. But the combination sounds really cool, and without the consumer knowing, hey, this combination maybe hasn't been studied, maybe the dose is too low. I see that a lot with mixed supplements. The combination sounds cool, but the dose is just meaningless. Or what I also see a lot of, less so now, but I still see it where you see proprietary blends of substances, you know, nutrients complexes, fibers, plant extracts, you know, you name it. And but if you don't know what's in it, and it's just like this mix or this matrix of stuff, and it gives you a milligram amount, it's like, cool. What is in that?
Yeah, some of these will say like 5 grams of our proprietary blend of these things, but good luck finding out how much of each thing. And yeah, some of them are going to be underdosed, maybe some of them aren't, but you're never going to know. And that's oftentimes the reason for doing it. Some people, some companies hide behind like, we're protecting our special recipe. Well, not we're protecting our special
Actually,
formulation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Formulation,
Yeah,
even though the formulation is like creatine and citrulline malate and beta alanine. Like no one, like just we're combining common things, but we're pretending that we have this like super secret formula. But it's again, it's just to underdose things and hide it.
Yep. Yep. It's actually the reason why, in some cases, for my clients, I like to say, get single ingredient supplements, the ones that are actually relevant, and we'll go through why, which ones, how much, all that, because then you can control the amount that's in it and usually be more confident that this is the only ingredient in here. Maybe there's some, you know, stuff with the capsule or whatever other ingredients that just kind of need to be there, but from like a which ingredients are actually doing something. I find it easier to do single ingredients unless you're super sure that it actually works with the formulation. It's quite rare, but it does happen. Then you have a little bit more control over that. I think multivitamins a bit trickier because that's a lot, but for most other ones, that's kind of the direction that I go usually.
I would agree with you, and I would even take that further because I find that people go into like the natural health products store, and it's like a I hate saying candy store, but it's like, oh, I need this because I, need help with my sleep too and my mood, and I'm just gonna put all this in my cart and take it home, and now we've got cupboards full of this stuff. So it's also if you are going to take one, like just start one at a time, right? Give it time to figure that out, then move on to the next one versus mixing them all together and not then knowing which one is actually doing what your original intent was for, or starting with one and then not buying all of them at the same time, just because they're expensive. So when we think about like cost, which cost of managing health, food costs go up, living costs go up, supplement costs are a high cost, not necessary item. So I think that's important to consider too, is like the cost of these are really for some people, it's going to be challenging.
Totally. Totally. I agree. Okay. Any last points on supplements that are zingers? We've gone through a few points I can summarize, but anything that is standout we haven't covered that is worthy of bringing up out in the open?
My favorite thing is just be wary of the magic effect of these supplements, and do not forget, Brandon, you pointed out how important foundations are. We're getting our nutrients and we're eating balanced and we're eating well, and all of those pieces have incredible power to do many things around health. So if we put concentrated effort there, versus the quick magic effects, like sometimes I think we're going in the wrong direction. But
Yep. 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 Bamiro?
Yeah, just some of those things to highlight or expand on a little more. I think the point we were talking about earlier about feeling that you want to replace a medication with a supplement, that's one where I would warn in that if you are on some form of medication that you spoke with your doctor about and was later prescribed, that's likely because in your particular case, it was determined that the benefits are going to outweigh the potential negatives. And I also find that people are often overly concerned with negative effects without knowing specifically which ones are relevant with that particular medication. And I feel maybe it's just more of like a stigma thing with medications in general and just wanting to not be on any of them. So that kind of thing, I would just say it's, yeah, if it's prescribed, it's likely for a good reason. And there's nothing morally or ethically wrong with taking the medication. It's not a cheat code of some kind. Uh, it's not less than doing things with just behavior change. Behavior change is a big piece of things, but it's not always everything. And sometimes medications are going to be necessary for some people, and that's oftentimes okay.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And yeah, actually, I'll end us on with one point that we haven't brought up that is very, very related to what you just said about where the information is coming from. So you mentioned the medications, discussion with your physician, healthcare provider, whoever it happens to be, where you're talking about that with. There's probably reasons, evidence, rationale for taking a certain amount of something or the thing in general. And I know sometimes individuals have a tough experience with healthcare systems wherever they are, and the trust may be a little bit worn down in some, wherein you lose trust in medications, and that is where I find it kind of annoying, and it does irritate me a little bit, wherein people that sell supplements, be it individual providers, people at supplement stores, people on social media, internet, wherever, will take advantage of those types of circumstances and say, try to exploit those individuals and saying, "Oh, this is going to work better," or because there's just so much gray that, and if they're not in a regulated profession like dietitians, being a regulated healthcare profession, that advice that they give about supplements, if they're selling, usually, there's nothing that's going to hold them accountable to it. So I guess that to summarize that point is choose the right source for where you're getting your information about that supplement, what supplement it is, how it's presented. The one that I found very recently was one that people sell a lot on social media, but and I know that's really common. I heard about this on social media. I saw it on Instagram or I saw it on Twitter, but usually better, if not almost always better, come to a healthcare professional that actually knows you, has done an assessment, wants to see you succeed from an authentic perspective and not just wanting to get money out of you or has some interest that is not your health at the top of their mind. That one I talk a lot about with people, and usually those cases are what lead people to have a really emotional connection to a supplement. They think it's going to do something because there's some hook somewhere that came up, and now they can't get it out of their mind. Well, the marketing worked, but I guess that, I feel like, is half of our battle sometimes, is fighting wonky marketing about anything nutrition related, unfortunately. Okay. Very good. It was good chatting about supplements. I mean, I really could talk about this for hours. There's so many different types. There's so many different areas, applications, use cases, very scary stories. But I hope that this was helpful. And I bet if we were to even have this conversation 6 months from now, a year from now, we'll probably have all kinds of new stuff to talk about. Perhaps we can even take some time later, go through some specific ones and just take some, analyze it. I always sometimes like to tell people that I can, in a session with a client, give somebody a look into what my brain is doing when I'm actually looking at something. So obviously that's it'd be a bit dicey. I don't want to get us sued by a supplement company. So cool.